You're listening to What's in Store, the official Hardlines podcast series, bringing you the hottest conversations with players in the home improvement retail industry, and brought to you by Geldwen.
Welcome to our latest podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Gallucci, who's a brand strategist and a leadership coach and a creator of the Life Blueprint framework. And you're also speaking at our conference, which is going to be wonderful. Yes. So, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, so speaking about the conference, you're hosting a workshop on the Monday. And part of your workshop is asking about, is there a tool in aisle 11 for managing people? So maybe you can tell us what tools you mean in leadership and how leaders can know which one to use.
Oh, I don't know if we have enough time for that. I'm just kidding. You know, I think, I'm going to give you some context as to why we actually chose this as a topic, because so many people are talking about how do I inspire and motivate in this time? And let's be honest, we are in a challenging time. I honestly feel I'm safe in saying that the world is kind of messy. And so I think we've always had challenges trying to figure out how to optimize our teams, inspire and motivate. And now you add to it the messiness. And so that was kind of the background of the topic. And then as I was actually talking to some of your team and some of the people who will actually be in attendance at the conference, it was like we all think that, oh, we can just literally go grab this, antidote or this cliche or this book. And the truth is one size doesn't fit all in optimizing our teams. I think one of the very first things is rightly or wrongly, taking the time to actually understand each one of our team players. And I think that that is actually challenging for all of us because, oh my God, that can take so much time. You can have a team of, 2 or 3. Okay, we can make that happen. As soon as you get into double digit and triple digit and on and on and on, it's how do you actually take the time to understand them so that you can really understand what motivates them and gets them out of bed every morning and help them to achieve that. And I think that that's what's really important as leaders is that we help people to achieve their goals personally and professionally. And I think that's what really breeds loyalty. So is there, the magic tool for that? I think the magic tool for that is really, some of these conversations, honestly, I've given so many team members my book and just said, let's have a one-day workshop where we're working through what matters to them personally, and then link it back to how we as an organization can help fulfill that. So I do think that that is step one, is really working with them. I think step two is really understanding the company that we are in, the vision for the company. I think as a leader, it's important to communicate where we're going, but how we're going to navigate that path. Because the past 5 years has definitely shown this to us. The path we may set may have some twists and turns and evil witches and warlords along the way. And we are feeling all of that. None of us expected COVID. We all went into 2020 thinking, hallelujah, we've turned the page on a new decade. And within months, we're in a situation that none of us could have forecasted or expected. And now we have to figure out how to course correct or course manage. And how do you do that when you've set a plan and then the plan keeps changing? Admittedly, with COVID as the perfect example, and yet a very unfortunate situation, everything kept changing every month. Like 1 minute it was like, okay, we're going to open the doors again. And then no, we're going to close the doors again. And so how do you adjust as a leader to that? And I think it's tough for leaders because they're trying to navigate themselves. And now you want me to lead and navigate all of you, and I'm just trying to figure out my own life. But I think that is actually the magic. I think that is the second magic tool, and that is being totally transparent and authentic as a leader, sharing the vision, sharing some of the twists and turns, not for the purpose of inciting chaos or anxiety, but for the purpose of actually getting support and empathy and awareness so that we're all on the same bus and we can all help navigate this bus. And I think that's the second factor in building loyalty is that if if I feel like I'm in it with you and I feel like you're hearing me, then I'm going to hear you too. And in the process of that, I'm going to help you navigate through this insane terrain that none of us expected. And I think some of the stories that we heard that came out of COVID where companies actually flourished, it's because the leadership said, okay, we need to huddle because this isn't working. You all have bills to pay. We have bills to pay. What can we do in order for our business to not only survive, but to thrive during this time so that we can all stay happy and healthy and motivated? And I think we see some of those successes that are out there now. Admittedly, maybe it's easier for some organizations than other. I'm not going to, in any way preach or provide judgment or anything, but I do think that the leaders who did that definitely made inroads in gaining greater loyalty with their team. And I think that's huge. So I think that's the second key piece. And then it's interesting that we're having this conversation today as well, because I wrote a couple of pieces this past week, because I think a big sentiment of the moment is frustration at all levels. But I think it's also important that we share with junior management or management that is not or doesn't feel as though that they're in a leadership role, that they are in fact in a leadership role. We're all leading, even if we're not managing people, we're still leading. But I think we all need to understand that leaders are struggling just as much as everyone else. So, it's not like we were handed this book that says, here's how to run a company. Here's how to manage through good times and challenging times. Here's how to optimize each one of your team members. That magic book does not exist. And so I think as people who are reporting in, we sometimes get really frustrated and we're like, what is their problem? Why are they making this decision? Why are they grumpy at this moment? What is going on? And, they could be grumpy at that moment because their child's school called, their in-laws are having a tough time, they're having issues in their own home, or there's another crisis in the business and they're like, oh my God. Or there's a win in the business, but they also have to figure out how to mobilize that and share that information. So I think sometimes use a little bit more compassion and kindness from, junior management looking up, and also leadership, and I don't like that looking up, looking down. I don't like that hierarchy, but I think we could just use a little bit more compassion among us to really generate awareness of the challenges that each one of us is facing, because each one of us is facing challenges. And both personally and professionally. So I think those are some of the top line things that we're going to address specifically in the workshop. And I think, if I don't want to give away what I'm going to be doing because I want everybody to come to the workshop, but I think that a key piece is that you need actually a decent sized toolbox, but at the end of the day, I think we all just have to relate back to our humanity and have the conversations and understand each one's goals and motivations and optimize them for each other. And in that process, we'll be successful and our companies will be successful. That's kind of my bottom line.
Now, do you see that any of that, especially with the word loyalty itself, translating to the customer as well?
So I think a happy customer is as a result of a happy business environment. Let's be honest, when you walk into a retail store, as an example, or a coffee shop, and you're greeted with a smile, how are you today? What's happening as your coffee's being made, or as you're looking through the store, that there's something going on in there. You just know it. You feel it the minute you walk in the door. And whether you buy something or not, you kind of take note of the atmosphere. And let's be fair, you absorb it. You also know when you walk into a place and it's like, what do you want? You're disturbing them and you're an inconvenience, that there's something else going on. And so I think that it does translate. I do think that when we are personally managed properly, and when that is noted by others, specifically our peers and our management, that we rise. I don't think it's been released yet, but I just wrote something on you're great. Tell somebody today you're great. So if I sit here with you, Becky, and I say, oh my God, you are great and you look amazing today. Like, look at your face. Automatically, you smile, you sit up straight, you just change the way that you are going to walk into the world.
Mhm.
And okay, let's be really fundamental here. What did that cost me? That cost me nothing. And I'm not being phony about it. You actually do look great. But I'm not being phony. So I think if we're being phony, people see that. But I think if we're being authentic and we call out, that's a great job. And you call it out to a peer, you call it out to a leader, you call it out to whoever, you call it out to the person at the coffee shop. Thanks, my coffee's great. Like, I love the design that you made. Or, oh, it's nice and hot and I really need this today. Like, I think it's so important that we lift each other. And when we do that, it translates into every relationship that we have with our vendors and suppliers and our clients. We had a claim to fame in our agency life, and we won awards from our suppliers. And with the greatest of respect to our clients, obviously our clients were our bread and butter. But when you win an award from somebody who is supplying services to you, I think it speaks volumes about how you and your team are treating them. And so I think if you're treating your suppliers well, imagine hopefully how well you're treating your customers. So I do think the aura and the energy that really has to come from all of us. I do think leadership sets the tone. I really do. And I think as leaders, if we are struggling to set the tone, then don't walk through the door. Honestly, do not walk through the door. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself, to poise yourself, to be happy and be healthy, or to be honest and to share. Otherwise, we walk through the door and we can really destroy the day. And I think that's not our job as leaders. Our job is to move the business ahead every day and to support our people in that process. So, I think one translates to the other.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you. So for your book, which is obviously called The Life Blueprint, it aligns vision, values, and action. What's a common misalignment that you'd see in leaders, especially in retail, and how can they correct it?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And in fact, we're going to be giving out, I'm going to bring copies of Life Blueprint, but we're going to be giving out my latest book, which is called How to Do Life, which is a little bit more of the workbook version of Life Blueprint. And where I find the biggest disconnect is that we have a vision. So we have goals for our company and we want to be the XYZ, the best out there and everything. And I'm aligned on that. We need to have that goal that we're all striving for. But at the same time, we have to show up every day. So we can't kill ourselves in the process of showing up every day. So how do we balance that? And so many people talk about work-life balance. And I think in my opinion, the best way to balance that is to really think about, in the case of retail, in the case of our lives, to really think about the impressions we want to leave. So how do we want to be remembered? What is the impact that we want to have? What is the review that we want to have? What is, when they walk out the door, are they going to talk positively about us or negatively about us? And I think when we look at things from the lens of, this is the big dream that I have that I want to carry us forward to achieve. And we also balance it with the fact that in the process of that, I want to be a good person, a good contributor, good at customer service. What it does is it balances out the potential that we could become, a neurotic mess or, constantly hyper because we're worried about the goal. And so we don't enjoy the moment that we're in. So I think it's important that we balance the two. And the way that we balance the two is through our strategic and annual planning. Your strategic plan is that big vision that you have for yourself. And your annual plan is the day-to-day piece. And it's, literally where you from a day-to-day are constantly being agile and juggling and trying to figure out, how are we going to manage and optimize? So I think when we bring the two together, which we do, and I think we actually do it very appropriately in the last kind of quarter of the year, the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, we really start to plan for the year ahead. And I think that's when we do a gut check on how have we done, and then how do we intend to do? And with that intention, are we putting that balance in so that it's achievable and we're not, killing ourselves in the process? Because the goals are amazing and we definitely need them. But I also think that if we are too aggressive, sometimes we miss the opportunity to enjoy every day. So, you have to balance that. You do have to stop and smell the roses, and you do have to break bread with your team and with your customer and with your family. And I think therein lies where we bring balance to the equation, is by having that long-term vision and the day-to-day right beside each other, and figuring out how we're going to show up in that process as we plan towards that, and literally plan out the milestones. Because there are overnight successes, and we all know that, but 99% of the time it is a long road to success. And so, let's set ourselves up for success by building out the plan that allows us all to be inspired and motivated in the process.